Hello, my name is Bartholomew Furrow, and welcome to our Google Code Jam Hangout number 2. Google Code Jam is a programming contest that Google runs every year. We ask algorithmic problems, and contestants can go online and compete with little experience or a lot of experience, and the finalists get to fly to New York and potentially win up to $10,000. I'm joined by some of the luminaries of the competitive programming world here. I'm joined by Petya Mitrichev. I have to warn you, by the way, that I'm going to mangle everybody's last names. Petya is a champion competitive programmer. He's won more tournaments than I can name. And he's a fellow Googler, which is to say he works at Google. And he is one of the people who works on CodeJam. Which is also true of my other two guests here, Tomek Jaika, who has also won a number of tournaments and whom I've known now for something like 9 years when we met at Google's first CodeJam in 2003. And finally, Onufri, whose last name I'm just not even going to try. He can say it for us. And he has been heavily involved in the preparation of CodeJam problems this year. So we might hear a little bit about that from him. So maybe if you guys can introduce yourselves and to tell us a little bit more about yourselves. Tomek, you want to lead us off?
So, sure. My name is Tomek Jaika, and you said it pretty well. So I started working for Google in 2007, and have been doing programming competitions for a long time. Started doing programming competitions in high school when I was about 16 or so.
All right, very cool. I'll ask you for more later. Petya, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Petya Mitrichev, which you also pronounced quite good. I'm from Moscow and still working for Google in Moscow. I also joined Google like Tomek in 2007, and I've also been doing programming contests since forever. I actually won the Code Jam in 2006.
Very nice. And
yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Onufri.
Hi, so my name is Onufri Wojtaszczyk. I am more of a problem creator than a problem solver. It sounds bad when I say I create problems, but nonetheless, so I'm setting problems for this year and last year's CodeJam, and also, for instance, for the ACM ACPC finals. I'm working at Google here in Warsaw. I moved here from the office in Krakow half a year ago.
All right. Well, very cool. If you hadn't noticed, we have people from 3 different offices here. Onufri is in Warsaw, and Petya is in Moscow, and Tomek and I are in Mountain View, though here on the Pacific coast of the United States, it's 8 a.m., so it's too early for programmers, but I guess we want to have a good time for our guests in Moscow and Warsaw. Part of the reason why we're here is to talk about CodeJam, but we opened up a Google moderator page for questions, and it seems like what people are most interested in is sort of the backgrounds of our competitors and how they've practiced. So maybe if I can start off by asking each of you how you got into programming, period, not just competitive programming, but programming, and then sort of from there how you got into competitive programming. Petya, would you care to lead us off?
Oh, sure. I mean, I didn't have a computer until I participated in the first programming contest, so my programming start was with a book. And then after reading this book, I went to a after-hours school when you can practice programming. And from then on, I was fascinated by it, so it all went from there. It was writing some games in the beginning, but then...
And how old were you when you started?
More serious stuff like programming contests. I think it was 11 or 12. I think 11.
All right, an early starter. Tomek, how about you?
So I was similar. I got a computer, a 8-bit computer when I was 12, and pretty soon after I started programming on it in BASIC, doing some little basic programs, games and stuff. I didn't really get into algorithms and competitions until high school. I started by doing math competitions, and since there is a significant overlap between math competitors, math competition competitors and programming competition competitors, I got to know some good people who have done well in programming competitions, so I kind of got interested in that.
Very cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I started doing programming competitions when I was 16, doing the Polish Olympiad in informatics.
Wow, very interesting. And Onufre, I understand that you got a late start on programming contests, but maybe not on programming.
Actually, I mean, like, I also had a computer when I was pretty young, and I guess I did some basic, but it didn't stick with me. And all of high school, I actually did math competitions, and math, basically. And I also, like Tomek said, there's a significant overlap, and there was quite a few people who were doing programming competitions, but I assumed you have to know really a lot to get into this, so I didn't.
Which is not true.
Yeah, which is not true, which I learned the hard way, or the easy way, actually, when I actually started doing this. But this was... So I went to study maths and computer science just because doing only maths seemed kind of boring. But I still didn't do programming competitions. And then, like, when I finished university, it turned out that there are no math competitions for people who aren't students anymore. And I kind of felt the urge to compete with somebody, somehow. And so this is the moment when I was so desperate that I actually looked at the programming competitions. And it turned out that you don't really have to know anything to participate and even do reasonably well. But this was when I was 20-something, and the something wasn't very small.
Wow, that's really interesting. I like you, Onufre, I sort of got started programming when I was quite young, but it never really stuck. Actually, I wasn't that young, but it also never really stuck until I discovered programming competitions myself. Now, Petya and Tomek, you guys are, for lack of a better word, great at this stuff. So you mentioned getting started pretty young. How much practice did you guys have? Like, how many years of experience did you have before you started winning?
So I actually did pretty well in the Polish Olympiad when I was like 2 years after I started programming competitions. But I think that's because I already had some math competition experience, and that really helps. And I started reading books about algorithms just to do well in programming competitions. So that was a big driver for me to learn things. Yeah, and also I went to science camps, to math camps, and when I met people who also went to other camps, including programming or computer science camps, I decided to go to some of those, and that's where I learned a lot of things that eventually let me do very well in programming competitions.
Cool, Petya?
Yeah, I think it also took me something like 3 years to get from doing nothing to performing reasonably well at the Russian level. For me, it was mostly the camps, because my first several Olympiads were quite funny, actually. So I went to the Moscow Olympiad and I lost it completely, like solved only one problem. But because I was so young, they took me to the Russian Olympiad. And there again, I lost it completely. But because I was so young, they took me to the International Olympiad camp. And there I learned a lot of things. So that's how it worked. And I think the competition is really what was driving learning for me, because I was, like, by myself, I don't think I would ever become that good. But when I see people that are solving problems that I can't, I think that's what makes me want to learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helped me a lot.
Well, very interesting. So, for those of you who are watching at home, it's worth noting then that these guys, who are definitely among the best in the world, took a couple of years of practice in Tomek's case, serious reading, and in Petya's case, going to camps where he studied this with other people to get good, and I'm sure even longer to sort of get to the point where they were top of the world. Sort of on a slightly more strange note, I understand that a couple of you have gone to particularly interesting places to do programming contests. Anufri, do you have a tale of that?
When I was competing, the only time actually I successfully competed in Top Coder Open, where by successfully I mean I went to the on-site finals. I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Poland with a group of Boy Scouts for a month, and I wanted to do the final offline, final rounds, which you usually do at home, but, well, I wasn't at home, so I wanted to find any place that had internet access, which wasn't that easy. And finally, I found out that if I drive 30 kilometers out of the place where I am, there is a McDonald's. And the McDonald's has a Wi-Fi, and during round 4, it was pretty successful, and I actually passed round 4, so I went there for round 5. And there some kid had a birthday, and it was pretty awful. But fortunately, it was enough to solve one problem to get to the finals, and this was what I did.
That's awesome. How about you, Petya?
Yeah, I think there was a time, like when I was in university, I tried to basically participate in every competition I could find. So there was some competitions happening at 5 a.m., for example, and I was participating in all of them. Sometimes this created awkward situations, like once I was traveling in a train from St. Petersburg to Moscow, like there were like 4 people in the compartments all sleeping, and I was writing the contest at 5 a.m. while everybody else was sleeping. And it was like on an upper berth in a train, which was also quite constrained, but it went reasonably well.
Wow. You guys are hardcore. My personal most interesting contest writing experience was my first year of grad school. I was just getting started with grad school. I was having just a really rough week, and I got a migraine headache. Which are these really, really nasty headaches, and I was in the physics department's computer lab, and I just decided that I was going to compete, damn it. So I stayed up with like an increasingly awful headache to compete in a Top Coder Open round. So actually, here's another question for you. Actually, whoever wants to answer it, I guess we'll start with Petya. Have you made a lot of friends from programming competitions?
Well, I feel like my friends are roughly divided into 3 groups, like high school friends, university friends, and programming competition friends. And I think the latter group is by far the largest. So I think I spend most of the time with my programming friends.
Cool. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the contests are great, especially when you go on site. You meet so many people, and they're all smart, so it's great to hang out with them. Mm-hmm. So definitely, yeah, we're all friends.
Yeah, they're not just smart, but they're also smart, sort of algorithmic thinkers in a particular way. And yeah, my experience sort of agrees there. Now, I understand, though I didn't watch this happen, that there was a particularly interesting round of the Top Coder Open. I think it was the finals, but I could be wrong about this. That I mentioned that Tomek and Petya, you guys are among the best in the world, and so of course you've gone up against each other. And I think in this round you guys were competing pretty intensely for first place. Tomek, could you tell us the story from your perspective?
Well, there have been multiple rounds, actually. We competed against each other, as far as I know, starting 2003 at least, in the ACM programming competition. And then I think Petya beat me in Top Coder Open in 2006, and I got second. And then you're referring to the 2008 final when we flipped, and I won, and he was second. Yeah, but that was a very interesting final, because what I did, I got a lot more points from solving the problems, but then given that Top Color has a challenge phase where you can get extra points by finding bugs in other people's problems, Pietia did very, very well on that, which I did not expect could happen. And basically left me with 15 seconds to get back on top after he got to first place, challenging people. But luckily, I found a random solution that I hoped wouldn't work for some reason, and tested it with a pre-random test case. So that ended up well for me.
This is one of the things that I particularly identify with you, Tomek, is the game theory of competitive programming. You're very seriously about trying to game your opponents.
Yeah, I sort of waited for this throughout the whole challenge round too, because I figured that it's going to be almost impossible for Pietia to catch up, so I better just wait and not...
just in case you're wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm just going to increase the minute possibility he might catch up. So it's better to just not do it. But turned out that he did catch up. So yeah, there's some interesting strategy components to these kind of decisions.
I vaguely remember a round, again, a Top Color final, where you submitted one.
Oh, I can't hear you now.
The problems. Sorry, can you hear me now? Oh, shoot. Well, I'll just keep talking and hope that you can hear me.
Yeah.
I remember a Top Color round where you, I've been told this anyway, you submitted a hard problem really quickly to trick other people into thinking it was easy.
Yeah, sort of. So that was in an online. I think that was an online round in one of the Top Color tournaments. I didn't exactly plan it that way. So what happened was I started solving the hard problem, and I sort of thought that there was a very easy solution, some sort of a greedy, natural solution, and thought that it would work, which turns out it didn't. So I coded it up pretty quickly, and then when I was about to submit it, I thought. When I was about to submit it, I realized it's wrong. So, but then I thought, oh, it's still good to submit it because other people are going to think the same thing probably, and this will put some pressure on everybody else to go and submit quickly. So that's what I did. You don't lose that many points by submitting a wrong solution. So I figured putting some pressure on people and making them think to solve the problem quickly would do some good. So that's what I did, and then I resubmitted pretty late with a much more complicated correct solution. And I think I was one of the few people who got it right, or maybe even the only. I'm not sure.
Well, most people just try to solve the problems. Tomek has to game it.
Yeah.
That
competitive component of competition.
I think actually many people look for problems already solved to find new problems to solve, and I think sometimes the strategy doesn't work. So I guess for the upcoming code jam, I would suggest people to at least try to solve all problems by yourself before looking what others solve.
Okay, that's that's pretty good advice. I mean, for some of our newer competitors, though, I think probably if they see a large number of people have solved a particular problem, maybe they should probably still think about focusing on that one first. Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get stuck on that problem, and then it's usually better to think about another one just for several minutes and then come back. Still better than just look at the screen and do nothing.
Okay. One thing that I really liked about the code jam format is when I still was eligible to compete by not being employed by Google, is that it's reasonably relaxed in terms of time. I mean, you have it 2.5 hours on the usual rounds, 3 actually. Wow, that's awesome. And that's quite a lot of time. I mean, it's way more your turn. So yeah, Yeah, so you've got quite a lot of time to actually solve the problems, which means that you can, like take your time thinking. You can try and open all of them and try to understand all of them, which is, you don't feel this real need to hurry and solve as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So my next question actually is coming off of the Google moderator link. So this question is for Petya, and it's how often do you find problems and the chance to apply contest-like thinking and algorithms in your daily job? Like seeing a problem thinking, hey, that would be a 500-pointer Division I problem. And this question is from Jed in Argentina.
So I'm a bit biased, of course, because I tend to look for tasks at work that require some algorithms. But for me, they come up quite regularly. I guess they are quite different in selection from what programming contests have. I think the most frequent ones are like simple one-dimensional dynamic programming. Basically, you have like several terabytes of data come in one block at a time, then you have to compute something about it. And it's actually very interesting how many different things you can compute in that system. But then there are other things like KD trees that have appeared several times for me, and I think once I even implemented a segment tree which allowed to add a constant to a range and find the maximum of a range in logarithmic time, also for work. So it's not like I'm only doing this, and I think the most interesting problems are actually not those more you have some data and you want to extract some information from it, basically. And there is no like concrete statement or concrete time limit. You just have to find a way to make the data more useful. And I think those are actually quite as challenging and more interesting than the programming contest ones.
Interesting. It's funny about you just said this in passing, but it's kind of a characteristic of working at Google is that you get like a terabyte of data and you want to do something with it, or many terabytes. It's very often the case here that we just work with very large volumes of data. All right. So the next question comes from someone whose name I'm sure to pronounce well. It's Pietrek in Poland. And the question is, how much do you think your experience in programming competitions helped you in your career? I know that Petya is still actively taking part in almost all such competitions, but how about others? Do you think it's helpful to compete while having a job? Now, Onufre, I know you actually didn't compete before having a job, so maybe I'll start this one off with Tomek.
Sure. Well, so definitely it helped me. What programming competitions did for me was give me a motivation to learn about computer science at all initially, and that was the biggest part of it, I guess. And so I did learn a lot by reading and also going to competitions themselves and solving problems, and then going to training camps for international competitions and stuff like that. For these days, it's mostly like a hobby that I don't do that much. At university, we did some training, for the ACM competition. We did the weekly training work also. So I think if it wasn't for programming competitions, I might be in
programming competitions. I would still be doing maths at university, which I don't say it's a bad thing. Although I'd say I like it better here. So one thing is the same thing that Tomek said, that it gave me a lot of motivation to actually, there's no way to learn to write code other than actually to write a lot of code. I mean, you do learn by other things too.
Yeah. There's one question that on our moderator link has been asked time and time again, always in a slightly different form. But what it boils down to is, how do you prepare for a programming competition? How do you get good? How do you practice? And it seems like this is an important enough question to people of all levels that I want to ask it of all of you. I think this one has been asked by Nicholas, by Satyajit, by Ediston, by Abhishek, by Aish Baraya, and I'm going to stop there because I'm not doing very well with the names. But it's been asked by just a ton of people. So maybe we've heard from you at least recently, Petya. What's your #1 tip for how people should prepare for these contests?
Yeah, for me it was very simple. You have to practice. And I think you have to practice in a way that you don't, like if you can't solve a problem, you shouldn't forget about it. You should try to come back to it and eventually solve it. Like ask your friends, ask people on the internet. But I think the important thing is to get problems solved in the end. So I think that kind of practice can get you very far.
All right, Tomek?
So I did quite a bit of practice when I was in college because I had a lot of time in the dorm and at university. So what I mostly did is, well, first of all, competing in a lot of competitions online. That's a really fun way to practice, and it's pretty effective also, I think. But also just solving past problems from various competitions, like you can do on our CodeJam website. Go and solve all the past problems and see if your solution works. And not even try to solve them fast. Just actually, I was trying to solve them to write the code slowly and think about like the best, shortest way to implement a solution, and then go improve it. And that helps later when you're under time pressure to go with a simple solution once you've. If in practice you started off with usually people start with a complicated solution, overcomplicated if they don't have much experience in programming competition, and then you can go and iterate and improve it over time, and that way next time you have to write some code, you can be much more effective by writing shorter solutions.
Okay, that's really interesting. So your big piece of advice is to be very mindful when you practice about the solutions that you're writing, and instead of practicing like you're competing and trying to solve every problem as quickly as possible, you should focus on how you can do better next time. That's really interesting. That's a really good piece of advice. Anufri, how about you?
So for me, the most intense period of practice I had was one half-year period, basically, when I decided, okay, so I'm going to see if I can get to the Google CodeJam finals. The result of this was getting to the Top Coder Open finals, somewhat accidentally. And then I practiced quite a lot, and the way I practiced was I took some problem set. For instance, I did all the previous CodeJams back then, and logged what I was doing. So I wrote down the time when I first read the problem, wrote down the time when I understood thought I understood the problem, wrote down the times when I had various ideas. You know, like just jot down on a piece of paper at what point of time was I doing what. And then, like, after doing 3 or 4 of these, I went over them and tried to, figure out what went wrong. And, like, for instance, if there was a problem, and there was one, then I spent 3 hours debugging what I actually wrote. Well, that's bad. So, and then the next time I decided, okay, so I'm going to, for instance, try to write down the whole solution on paper before I start coding, because I heard somebody was doing this, and this really sucked. And this was not a good idea, but what I learned is that actually writing down the declarations of all the functions on paper did help me quite a lot, and and I started doing this in real programming contests. I'm not saying that this is a good strategy for everybody, but I'm saying that what I learned by trial and error was that it decreased the average error rate for me significantly.
That's interesting. So Tomek was sort of very mindful during his practice sessions, and you were sort of very mindful after your practice sessions about what you could do to improve.
But I agree about the writing things down. I also write things down and pieces of code even. Although with experience you can sort of imagine it, but instead of writing things down, if you don't have much time, you can like just imagine, just do it in your head basically. But that comes with experience, and even then, it's very important not to start coding. Just think the code through first. So people make the mistake of starting coding before they have a whole solution stand out, which is a very bad idea in general.
Though for newer coders, I should point out that they probably don't yet have the skill to hold the whole solution in their head for a longer solution.
Yeah,
so
but in that case, you should definitely use paper.
Okay, very good. Yeah, because that's just a skill that improves with time, I think. As you solve more problems, you get better at keeping stuff in your head. So we're just about out of time here. I say just about, and really we're completely out of time. Anyone want to, I don't know, I guess I wanted to add in that I'm super excited about this year's CodeJam problems, and all three of you have been working hard on those. Anyone got anything, any words to add to that?
No, it's going to be great.
I like to hear it.
I hope it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and it's going to be in New York.
Yeah, it's going to be New York, that's true. So we'll look forward to seeing our top 25 finalists in New York. Thank you to all three of you. This has been a great conversation, and I hope people learned something from watching it. I guess this is going to go up on YouTube a little while after we're done. So thank you to Petya, Tomek, and Onufri, and this has been our second Google CodeJam Hangout on Air. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.